Okay, welcome everybody. So if I haven't met you already, I am Rachel and I'm the founder of Under the Dancing Tree School of Sacred Dance and Healing. And I'm very delighted today to have with me Rachel O'Leary. So today you get two Rachels, not just one. And as well as being a very dear friend, she is a writer, a storyteller, and a breastfeeding counsellor. And I brought her on today to have a little bit of a discussion and a talk around her book, which is really wonderful, and some of those themes that come up in that book as well. So about women's empowerment, about looking after nature and really supporting each other and coming together as a woman. So welcome, Rachel. And I'm going to begin by just reading you a little bit from Rachel's website. So just sharing about her book, The Swan Bone Flute. So I'm going to share directly from her website just because it says it's so much better than I could remember. So if you bear with me for a moment. The Swan Bone Flute is a historical novel. It weaves together themes from women's empowerment, care for nature and our beautiful earth, and uses storytelling to explore the ancient roots of our oppression. In Wellstow, an Anglo-Saxon settlement where forest meets fen, trouble is brewing. Ursel, the headman's strong-willed niece, defies her uncle to save a pregnant red deer hind from the hunt. She understands but can't explain that all lives are woven together. If they devastate the wild, the people will perish too, and women will bear the brunt. He sees the disobedient girl who threatens his ambitions and beats her with the blunt end of a spear. Into the storm strolls Hilda, the travelling storyteller, playing her swan bone flute. She has a plan to wake up the women before Thane and Headman steal their rights. Her humour and passion inspire Meg, who yearns to become a storyteller too. But how can she, a slave girl, dare to stand up before them all? She's shaken when the sun targets her with his vengeful lust. Hilda's tales reveal an ancient world wherein rule in Peony Valley, until fighters trample it and only the wise woman holds power to resist. Hilda despairs of Wellstow women when they turn on each other instead of standing up against oppression. Her stories begin to transform each of them. If she can help them work together, they may have a chance to bring back their traditions of respect for women, community and Mother's Earth. Headman's wife, Oswin, must decide whether to risk losing everything to support Elder Edith against the Thane. Seren, the healer, can raise magic mist, but will it stop the Thane taking over their loot? Ooh, so there's a bit of a teaser for you. And I will put below here as well the link to Rachel's website so you can go and find out more and read more after our little chat as well. Yeah, so I'm really excited to have you here and to be discussing this book with you. Really relevant for today, I think, with women returning to finding themselves on a much deeper level than we've been able to and had the opportunity to for maybe hundreds of years, I would say, and kind of a re-emergence and a going back, to our deepest and most ancient roots, and somewhere still alive in us. So like the flame that you talk about in the book, that flame is still glowing somewhere within all of us as women, and I really think it is being lit and it's amplifying at the moment, and it's really important to come together and be together and be brighter together and light each other's flames up as well. Fabulous. So I'd love you to introduce yourself first, because you can probably do it a lot better than I can. And though I've known you for, oh gosh, it must be 6 years now, I think. So me and Rachel met at Caimabon on a women's retreat, and we met. I picked Rachel up from the train station and we went to the beach. And I think we found a piece of, I don't know if we ever found out what it was, a piece of whale or something that was on the beach, or I don't know. So I have it, this fossil, but it became a bit of a, what is it? Yeah, so I would love for you to introduce yourself. So who are you? What do you do? Why storytelling? Why this book? big question.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Lovely to have a chance to chat with you, Rachel. And we live so far apart that it's hard to get together in real life. But here we are. The magic of internet. It's fabulous. And yeah, so lots of themes to talk about. But you want me to introduce myself. So, I'm Rachel, and I live on the edge of the fens, which sounds terribly romantic, but actually the fens are now great big fields of sugar beet and potatoes mostly. But you can still see that really dark, rich earth crumbly. And I'd like to walk round the village. When I walk round the village, I can start up on the chalk ridge, and it's crunchy under my boots, and then go slithery down the lane where it's all a bit more clay, and you can imagine people scooping up big lumps of that and making things. And then you get down into the peatlands where it's all as rich as fruitcake. Or it used to be. Now, of course, it's all blowing away and getting denuded. So it's very acute, the whole what we need to do for the earth from the point of view of the wild places and also the soil that we depend on for our food. So that's not about me. That's about me going for a walk. Okay, I do like to go for walks. And it was great on the beach. I don't think we swam that day. It was too cold, did we? Poor chicken. But I do like to swim as well. So I've got some children, I've got some grandchildren, and they're all very lovely, and I'm missing them a lot at the moment. We'll get back there sometime. What else? People always want to know how I started writing the book, I suppose, or, you know, where did I get the ideas from? And partly it was sitting and reading stories to my two little girls. And Snow White and Rose Red was one of their favourites, and I kept reading that. I had to read it about 20 times a night and put their names in instead and all that. And I got to thinking, well, where are the women in these stories? They're there, but what are they doing? And then I got Hilda talking in my head, knocking on there saying, come on, you've got some work to do here. Find out about all this. So I did. I started delving into the history a bit more. I mean, I have studied history, but the history I studied wasn't very interesting. It didn't tell me where it all started going wrong. And that's what I wanted to know. And I found answers, some answers, and then some more questions, always more questions than answers. So it started getting interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, and you wanted to know who I am as well. So
all of this.
I've been doing the breastfeeding counselling for a long time, since those little girls were babies, and still working in charities with that, which is so important now, all the time, just helping mothers find their feet in this strange, deadly world we're in. Oh, so hard. So it's not just about the breastfeeding, it's about who are you? Because the mother is born along with the baby, and it's very confusing, very confusing. There are some bits on my website about all that too. Not enough. I keep writing more. Yeah. And storytelling, well, that just kind of found me. when the storytelling revival started in the 1990s, I went along to something and went, that's what I want to do. And I've been finding out more about that, and ever since.
I remember when we were at, I don't remember which retreat it was at Kaimabon, but we were around the, I don't know if anybody's ever been there, it's amazing, you should go. In the, around the fire in the hut, and you were telling a story about, I think it was Grendel's mother, probably got his name wrong, from Beowulf, and we were talking before about how you can just get lost in things so much that you forget who you are. I was just, to hear that perspective, you never hear her voice. It's all about Beowulf, and that story is, well, very much of its time. It's about the warrior and about what he's doing, and it briefly goes into the women, but like you said, you just don't hear their stories. And to hear her, I'd always felt this kind of sympathy, I suppose, as a woman, for her, just like, okay, well, her son's got killed and now you're killing her. Well, what's she got to say about that? Just, she's bad, and she, everybody's black or white, and she's portrayed as black, and then she's killed because the bloke decides that's the right thing to do. And when you shared that different perspective, it was like, yes, we know that perspective, we know a different truth within ourselves, and it was amazing, to hear that and to hear her being given voice. Definitely, no, I loved it. So is there any kind of particular inspiration that for the storytelling, that how do you find that, like her, how do you find the women, or do they come to you, to inspire you? Do you think, oh, I've always wanted to talk about that, or there is a theme that comes up, or how does it all, where does that muse, what's that point of inspiration?
They kind of step out of the stories and grab you by the back of the neck. And you have to just follow it. Whoa, what happened to her? Why did she do that? Why? And the stories that have come down to us often are in the voice of the man, even if they were told by women, which many of them were. But I think they're just waiting there, waiting to be discovered. And we can all do that. We can all just look at the ending of the story and think, what if something different happened? What if she actually stepped into her power? What would have happened? And especially important if you're telling stories to children, young girls, that give them the chance to talk about it and think, what would have happened if something went differently? One of my favourite stories is Little Red Riding Hood. I read a version where, after all the bad things have happened, then you go back and you tell it again, what happened the next day. She went out in the forest and there was this bad wolf, and the woman who was writing this story said, and my daughter said, but this time she put her head in the air and walked straight past and didn't talk to the bad wolf. Yes. So she's got it. I love that sort of thing. Of course, when I tell that story, the wolf isn't bad at all. It's the chap chopping down the trees who's the baddie. But that's another story for another time.
Oh, I want to listen to it now. A little bit of a taster. Yeah, and there's such a, there's a huge amount of books that are being produced at the moment, for women, and young girls especially that are about empowered women. And I think this, I feel it really came with the Me Too movement. You know, it really, it shook something up that needed to be shaken. And I
Mm.
know that, well, like myself, a lot of women have been through, you know, real bad experiences of harassment and sexual abuse, etc. So it's a really difficult movement, you know, the things coming up that have been deeply in the shadows, that they needed to come up, and so many amazing things have come from that. And just one of those things is women having voices again, or voices that are louder, you know, having that space now to really say what needs to be said, and things that have been very, very deep. And yeah, these, I remember seeing this series of books that have come out in the shops that was all about famous women, that were books for girls. And I was like, well, I wish I'd had that when I was a young girl, you know, because I
Oh,
didn't feel like I had all of these role models, really. I mean, I loved history growing up. I ended up doing my degree and my postgrad in history, and medieval history was my particular favourite. And I kind of there was an element where growing up where it's like, okay, well, the best thing to be is a princess, really, because that's the only. Otherwise, you know, what else is there, you know? And I
well,
remember thinking, like, you know, yeah, the voices of women and the queens in particular fascinated me. And I thought, gosh, if those queens ruled instead of the kings, how much more interesting, and maybe a bit more, maybe history might have gone a little bit better.
yep, yep, yep.
Yeah, even being called, like, you know, the she wolves. They were called she wolves, you know, because like Isabella, she chose to take a lover after, you know, her husband died, and suddenly she's a she wolf, and you think, gosh, no, she just wanted to love and love someone else. Yeah, yeah. So now, yeah. So I love the fact that you've written a book that is all about the voices of women. Definitely, super exciting. And yeah, in the book, I was really, really interested that the storyteller was a woman, because many of these roles like that, you kind of expect it to be a man, and we do hear, you know, especially in history, you know, of the men that have done the writing, the men that have told these tales and passed them on. So yeah, I'd really love you to share with our audience about the role of storyteller, you know, for women. Is that, do we know that's something that women did? You know, is that something that you feel was true, or is there evidence? So I'd love to, yeah, you to talk into more as into women storytellers. Where are they? Who were they?
Yeah, well, uh, of course, I set the book carefully just before things started to get written down very much. And the people in the book can't read or write, so uh, they don't know that they're not supposed to be telling stories. And of course, the people who told stories around the fire would have been the old women quite a lot, or younger women. And we haven't got names for famous storytellers until we get to the Middle Ages, and you get to the noble French court women who wrote stories down and gave them their own little twist and things. Yeah, so it may be completely unhistorical, but nobody knows. Why wouldn't a travelling storyteller be a woman? Why wouldn't a woman who was uprooted and not at home in any community, why wouldn't she travel around with whatever art she had to entertain people? So, yeah, but Hilda is a bit of a one-off. She's. I don't think you can say there were lots of Hildas, just the one, really.
Oh, I'd like to think there was. I do feel that, like, you know, with female storytellers now, and there's a lot of these roles that are women that are taking now, and they're going, well, they're new roles for women. I really don't think they are. I think they're a re-emergence, that they're
Yeah.
are coming back to. It's almost like we're going full circle, you know, in this kind of like this pre-Anglo-Saxon time, you know, the women did have these roles that they're now coming back to, like, you know, the priestess and the storyteller and the counsellor and the you know, there's that we were doing it at some point.
So it's all about reclaiming our ancient wisdom. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. Okay, so I asked you this question. We were talking a little bit before I started this interview. I was just so really interested in the book. I wanted to talk about it. So we were talking briefly about, you know, the inspiration for your characters, really, and I asked if any of them were you, whether you are Hilda.
Well, they're all me. I don't think I'm brave enough to be Hilda. I'd love to be. Stride around between the different villages and tell them, just chat with them a bit and find out what it is they need in that village and give them the story that they need that'll help to make the women's voices sound louder, come out stronger, be braver. But she does get kicked out quite a lot. I wouldn't enjoy that bit.
No. Would you say that's your message through the book for women, is to be brave and to speak out, you know, no matter what the consequences?
Yep, the pitchfork comes out at some point, always. These days it's online, of course, with the trolling and all that. But,
yeah, that's very true. Very true. Well, I'm just going to get a quick drink. So another theme that comes up in the book is about nature and protecting nature, and returning to this kind of intuitive communication that we have, and you know, and the young girl, she knows that it's not the right time, you know, for that deer to be killed. You know, she really does. She has that internal knowledge, and why do you think it's important that we have this communication and this listening to nature? Why should we listen to nature?
well, where to start? We are nature. That's a good place to start. Everybody, whether male or female or any other gender, is made out of all those bits of stardust and water and moon rock. We're all natural beings, and if we understand our own nature, it connects us up with that stronger, deeper sense of nature as a force out there. But the bottom line really is that if we don't take care of the environment now, there ain't going to be none anymore, and that includes us, and that's going to be quicker than we think. So we've just got a few years to straighten ourselves out, and I think we've got to be in touch with the natural world to really prioritize it, give it, her, us. We're all children of Mother Nature, and we've got to feel that so that we understand that this is what we've got to do as quick as we can. Just live in a more attuned way, taking less, giving more, just getting the balance right somehow.
So what do you think that we can learn from our ancestors, you know, from the women in this book, you know, the women pre all of this? What would they share with us? I mean, what would their advice be, I suppose? What can we learn from those in the past?
Get your hands in that compost heap. That's important. Just get your actual fingers in the soil and dig around there and find what's alive in there.
Mm.
I was just repotting a plant yesterday, and it was amazing. Down the bottom of the plant are all these living things. I thought, hey, wow, that's an ecosystem, not just a bunch of chives.
I have this thing with probably gonna laugh at me now. I have this thing about growing veg that I just love growing veg, but I get so attached that it comes to the point where you have to eat the food, and you're like, I just can't do it. I just, because I've had the seed, I've nurtured it, and then I've watched it almost every day, and then seen it grow up, and I sing to my plants as well. They all have a particular song that I create for them, and I sing to them. And then by the time it gets to the point where you've got to eat them, I'm just like, I just can't do it. I just want to sit and admire them. And, like my children. Yeah, but I think people have that disconnect, when you can just go to Tesco, you just pick up a bag. You don't have that. Obviously, you don't have that same thing, but you don't see that plant, from its beginnings and all that it's been through. You don't see the context, the soil that it sat in, where it's been, the hedgerows around it, the birds that have gone overhead. You don't see the elements and how they touch it. It's almost like it's not a living being anymore, because you can take your heart out of the equation completely. You don't have that awareness when you're eating a bean. You don't have that same awareness that, okay, I'm eating unless you're really, really conscious about it. Then you really don't have that same kind of, you don't have that same connection. You don't have that awareness of it being a living being. And I think actually, if we connected into the beans in Tesco, the story they'd have to tell us about how they've had pesticides put on them, how they've been thrown through mechanics and metal and launched and lorries and kept in the dark and stuff. I think their story actually would be so sad. I don't think we'd bear to be able to eat to eat those things. And I've actually found it really interesting that I've been lactose intolerant since I was a teenager, and I came to this conclusion that actually it was the energetics, of the cows. That the cows are they're sad, I got this energetic of them being fed with pesticides and them being kept inside, cages. I suppose they're allowed out sometimes, and actually it's that my body can't tolerate. Not
amazing.
Yeah, I just wondered, but so yeah, and I think it's amazing to see in the book, about the girls, how they're kind of, and the boys as well, are all going about like doing the jobs. Like, I was like, well, they're so young, yet they're in charge of looking after the pigs or looking after the chickens. And I was like, wow, okay, so there's that real, they've been given that responsibility and that connection to nature really, really young, and I think that's really important. One of my day jobs, I had some children that came in, and they were from the city, and like just seeing a cow was just like the most exciting thing. They'd never seen a cow before. Gosh, you're eating McDonald's every week, but this child had never seen a cow. And never mind the historic property, never mind all the history that was being shared. It was seeing a cow that for them was just like amazing. I just think, gosh, for children not to be, it's just astonishing. Yeah, and we can almost look back in a kind of I don't know how to put it into words, but looking back at the past and thinking, oh, I really wish it was like back then, and and that I mean, they'd probably like, oh, the indulgences you've got now, and getting to have a lie in, But I do think that reconnection with nature, is super important.
And for lots of people, that's not possible, because obviously they live in flats and cities and all that, and that's for real. But if you've got any of that in your bones, if you can, you know, remember a time when you were a kid and you made a den, or you paddled in a stream, or if there was a moment when you were on holiday when you just looked at something beautiful, or a plant or a flower or a mountain, if you can reconnect with that and get that feeling back inside you somehow, then that helps. And that's where we've got to work from, that heart connection with nature. That, like you were saying about not wanting to eat your veg, you know, that's the feeling that we've got to somehow nurture in ourselves and bring to life again, because yeah, that's who we are at a very basic level. And for women, that's especially important, I think, because our bodies tell us over and over again that we're made of earth and water and all these earthy, fiery, airy elements, and we've got to respect that sequence that happens for younger women through the month, and for us older ones, that, whoa, there's plenty happening for a lot of years. And the whole business of being in a body is very earthy and natural, I suppose. And we try to take ourselves away from that because our bodies are, people keep telling us our bodies are not good enough. We have to shape them a certain way and cut bits off and put bits in and colour and tweak and do all kinds of painful stuff.
Yeah.
And actually our bodies are good enough just as they are. They're fantastic and amazing and manage to support us through this life. And you can shape them however you want and colour them however you want. That's all great. But you don't have to. You can do exactly how you like. Because your body is fine as it is. As she is. As we are.
Yeah. And yeah, we were having this discussion before we came online, how I was saying that as a dancer, I feel very much like a storyteller as well. But yeah, like you said, a lot of women that that come to me through movement or sound or connecting with nature is about, it always comes down to ultimately, you know, root chakra issues, that they're disconnected from their bodies and they just need to come back into their bodies. I mean, just like touching their bodies, you know, even just like, you know, stroking your hand is like, you know, there's almost that disconnect, but like, well, that, no, because my body's for somebody else. And there's this, yeah, deep conditioning that the body is about service or about, yeah, just being viewed by others or offering something to others or doing something for others rather than, yeah, for self and coming back into self. And there's so many wonderful ways that as women we have this opportunity to come back into us. And I know that we face all these different things like fear or denial, or we're so much in the wrongness of us that we feel like we need to disassociate from our bodies because it's where the problems are, it's what's wrong, or it's what keeps others away, or it's what hurts or whatever. And yeah, through dancing and through the storytelling, it just reminds us how magical we are, you know, how wonderful we are. And there's something about storytelling as well where you hear the stories about these women and you're like, yes, I know that. You relate to it and you can hear that, and then you're reminded that you're not odd, you're not weird, you're not, my phone's going off. Wait for the phone to stop ringing. I have a little dance somewhere. I don't think you can actually hear it. I'm just dancing to myself. Okay, there we go. have to come and get it because I'm halfway through an interview. Thank you. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so I don't know what I was saying now. Oh, about storytelling, yes. So about how we can relate to the women that are in the stories, and just reminds us that we're not wrong, that actually we all go through all of these things together, you know, that and for thousands and thousands of years women have felt these things, have been through these things. And it's really amazing when you can go deeply into a book or a story and just be reminded of that you're not alone at all, that we are a community, not a community of just our 10 women or your 2 close friends, but a community of thousands of years of millions of women all together.
And of course, it doesn't always work like that, because women can be quite I want to say vicious, tear each other down sometimes, you know, especially if there's somebody successful and everybody wants to point out how fat she is, or, you know, somehow we can feel threatened by women who are making it somehow, having success in this world. And it's important that we don't do that. And I think the way we can support each other is to really hear the stories. One thing that happens in the book is that the women tell their own stories to each other. And Hilda, the storyteller, draws it out of them, gets them to actually tell how they got here. How did you get to be the elder? How did you get to be the headman's wife, you know? And it's not always easy. They tell about their struggles and how hard it was. And that's where we can connect with each other much better, when we see the struggles and we understand what the life is like as a whole, I think. And that's important, that we should actually listen to each other and hear what went on, how hard it was, how hard it still is for a lot of people. And listening is an art and a skill, which I've been very lucky to learn through breastfeeding counselling, because that's one place where women do really listen to each other, and it's fabulous stuff. Of course, you don't have to be breastfeeding to do that. You can also just be good friends and do it for each other. Listen, and don't be waiting for the moment when you can tell your bit. Just actually listen and go with her into that story. Like you were saying about Grendel's mother. You can get right in and hear what it was like to be that monster and feel what happened to her.
And do you feel, I'd love you to give me your perspective on this. Do you feel that there is a real need for things like breastfeeding and birth to really return back into women's power, into women's choice, into women's voices, and to be talking more about it? I mean, it seems from my perspective, and this is obviously from my experience in my life, that that breastfeeding and birth are very much had a time where they went into hospitals, and not that that's wrong, but it was very much controlled by men and men's perspective, and men trying to fix things. And I remember having this discussion with a lady recently who's a doula as well, and this discussion about that this woman wanted to squat when she was giving birth, and the gentleman doctor was adamant that she was to lie down, and she was like, and he was like, but I can't see if you're if you're squatting. And she was like, I don't care if you can see. I want to squat. And actually, maybe women don't have the opportunity to have their voices heard in these situations. I don't know from your experience as a breastfeeding counsellor whether you've just what you've experienced and what you've heard from women. Are women able to speak in that scenario, and are their voices becoming heard?
I would like to be able to say yes, but so often women are not listened to. And with the breastfeeding, they can be saying things like, but it hurts. And often it's another woman, actually, but working in a very male-dominated and patriarchal kind of system, who says, but it looks all right, so it shouldn't hurt. And doesn't really listen to the fact that it does still hurt, and so more help is needed, more attention is needed. Get in there and really look, really listen, really find out what's going on. And the male doctors have had even less training than midwives and the healthcare assistants who are trying to help. So, yeah, there is a big movement. Big movement. There's a powerful movement of women who are trying to reconnect women birthing and breastfeeding with their roots, and being able to do that in the ways that they need to do it. Breastfeeding counsellors are part of that. Doulas are part of that. And everybody says, oh, doulas are very expensive, but they all have ways of getting to the people that they need to help, which might not involve money. So there are ways to get the help that you need. And of course, breastfeeding counselling is always free from the charities, for charities who work in Britain. So what am I saying? We're trying. It's a movement. It's been on the move for a while, and it needs more strength, more support, and more women who are back in their bodies already when they come to the birthing and breastfeeding. So I'm sure you know that one of the great pioneers of birth, Michel Audin, had people singing and dancing before they gave birth as a way of getting back into the body, which is great.
I remember when I first began belly dancing, or two funny stories. It's like my first, and I tell this to a lot of my students, and it always makes them laugh, is that my very first teacher was Lebanese and didn't speak much English. And when I went into her classes, I was 15 at the time. And she came over to me. I just walked into the class, grabbed my hips, shook me, and said, "You make husband very happy." Just like, at the time, I had absolutely no idea what she was talking about. But I was just like, oh, yeah. But then later on in my belly dance journey, I remember one of my teachers telling me about women that were out in the desert still used belly dancing as part of birth. She said there was this beautiful tent made for the women. The women would all come together in the tent, and the birthing mother would be in the center, and the women would dance around her, and they'd all be, undulating together and singing, and the music and the drums. And I thought, wow, okay, I want that. I said, that sounds amazing. It's so different to, the thought of being in a hospital and being, needles in me and tied up to these things and being told, go here and go there. I think, gosh, what it would be to have that alternative, and we think we're so developed in the Western world that, we've got all this science and this technology. But in some ways, I do feel that it's kind of almost taken us away a little bit, you know, from trusting our bodies and listening to our bodies. So yeah, what do you think is really needed to change this, for women in the breastfeeding and birthing, what needs to happen, if anything? What can we do as women?
Well, the technology is great for those people who need it, but the way that it's kind of pushed on more people who don't need it is not so great. And what we need to do is, well, lots of things really. First of all, the management of the National Health Service needs to be a lot more humane and kind to the people who work in it. And I don't know how that happens because I'm not in there. But that's part of it. The midwives and the healthcare assistants need to be treated with respect and care for the women that they are, and some men as well, midwives. They often do a great job. And then we need to reshape the services around the women who use them so that the woman's in the centre and the services support her, just like your circle of undulating dancers. And once the woman's needs are met, she'll trust the system more. She'll come along and get the help that she needs from the system, because that's a big problem for particularly Black and ethnic minority women, is that they don't trust the system, which is racist a lot of the time. And so they don't get the help and the care that they need. So if we need to focus on that particular woman and her situation and help her to reconnect with those forces that will get the birth going, get the breastfeeding going, and let go of the conditioning that makes us be good girls and do what we're told. Because
Overrated. Definitely. Thank you. So what I will do as well, I'll put underneath this video some links to if this is, if anybody is of interest to them as well, or they want to know more, and I will also put some links below here for you as well, that you can find out more about all of this. So I would love for you to well, there's just so much to talk about. We could be here for hours.
Yeah.
But I would really love for you to actually share some of your book. So this is the beautiful, you can see. Oh, we'll be back to fun, but yeah. So this is a beautiful book that Rachel has written. With the picture on the front is by Catherine Sutar, who's also a belly dancer. That I know very well. It's a small world. These belly dancers go everywhere. But yeah, so I would love you to share with our audience some part of the book. So I asked Rachel to choose, her favourite part, which is probably a bit difficult. It's like the pan, it's like baby. But yeah, she's going to share some of the book with us, and it'd be wonderful to hear it from your voice.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'll read you the bit that Catherine liked. And this takes place in the Cave of Dreams, where two young queens are talking with the wise woman and getting their education. Far off in the root of the mountain, something shifted. Wing beats surged out of the depths of dark towards them. The brilliance of feathers filled the cave. A swan, transparent as ice, filled their vision. She stretched her neck and beat the air with her pinions. Breath fled from their mouths, awe overtook them. The eye that turned to look at each of them met Meralda's eyes and knew her to the core. She was held by a look as deep as a mountain tarn edged with gold. The swan's voice rang through Merelda's body, soft as faraway thunder, clear as lightning. Have you heard of swan maidens who choose human husbands, mate with them and leave when winter calls? The swan asked. They are my children. Do you remember the river mud figures of you and me merged, which women used to make? You are my daughters. Listen to the thrum of the wild in your bones. Like me, you can dive under the surface of troubles to find calm. You can swim unruffled where waves and currents run. You can rise up when you desire the sky. I am glad to fly with you. Every nerve tingled in Merelda's skin. I'll show you how to ride the tides of trouble, the swan fluted. When life crushes you, rest your cheek on the down of my chest. Breathe in love with each beat of my heart. Stretch your neck high. Feel your strength lift you. Spread your wings. That's where I'll leave it.
That's lovely, thank you. Yeah, and I love the imagery of the swan and just the symbol of the swan, and it's so important for women, yeah, as a symbol. And I think I kind of know where I want to go with this, but I'd love for you to, talk more about the symbology of the swan and the meaning of the swan.
Oh.
Why the swan?
The swan, well, the swan's a very old symbol, used by lots of cultures in different ways, but that idea of the swan goddess, the woman and the swan merged into a powerful whole. That's fantastic. And because she can travel through the three universes, the three elements, it sort of gets to me at a different level than I can't really explain it in words. It's a poetic thing. Yeah. And later on, Hilda explains why the flute is important to her, that was made from that bone. And it's about finding the voice that comes out of your own bones, your own inner transformative voice, the voice that you can't, it may not be words, it may not be anything very easy to explain, but it comes right out of the core of you. And probably that's where the dancing comes from too. I don't know.
Yeah, it's about being, I suppose they call it in shamanism, don't they, about being the hollow bone, and being that conduit where you you receive, and about having no expectation or objective, and just allowing that flow to just come through. And I think that the swan is very, very deep in our feminine psyche. She goes back, way into our past, the associations with Bridget, and just that. And I think on so many levels, the swan is there deeply in our psyche, just thinking about the ugly duckling, and many of us as women feel like the ugly duckling and want to be the swan, on some level. And then we can also relate to just that beauty of the swan, and that grace, and that journey that she travels through. And I remember that it was a very long time ago, I danced a dance as a swan, and it was about the swan's last song. So before a swan dies, she sings a song to her lover, and it's her last song, and he or she creates this beautiful song that comes deep from like her soul as like a parting song. And it's a really funny story actually, because I performed this dance and was like really really emotional about this swan's last song, and somebody came to me after the dance and was like, "You made a lovely angel." I was just like, okay. Oh well. But you know, at least they got something from it. If maybe the interpretation of my story through the dance didn't quite, you know, you can have that intention that sometimes it isn't always received in the way that you know that you hope. But yes. Yeah. So even just the image, I'll show you the audience again. You know, this image on the front of the book with
Catherine got it so beautifully. She got the whole, the feel of that inspiration, and also the that lovely wrinkled face in behind there.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Yeah, and there's so many. I mean, yeah, she's telling her story through art. You're telling your story through word and writing and speech, and then there's dance, and there's so many different ways that we can express our truth. And yeah, wonderful. Oh, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book, and for sharing the book, and for sharing you as well. It's been really wonderful.
Oh, it's just lovely to talk to you, Rachel, and everybody. Hi, everybody.
Yeah. Everybody that's listening. So I'd love for you to leave with our audience one last piece of wisdom. So your words of wisdom, if you could share anything. So if I'd given you just 2 minutes, you know, to just say you have to share just one thing of all of those listening, and I'd love for you to share your wisdom.
Oh, share my wisdom. Well, can I read another bit from the book? Have we got time?
Oh, yes, please do.
Oh, this is Elder Edith, the wise woman. And she's trying to explain how the women and the nature connect up. Our ancestors knew about the tenderness that floods through women when we birth and feed our babies. We heal children when they're hurt, soothe them when they're upset, hold them when they cry. We need to do this for each other when there's disagreement in our settlements. Compassion can draw out venom and heal pain, not just for each one of us, but for our communities. This is women's particular skill. Men can share it when they stand back and learn from us and care for little ones or animals, if they haven't had tenderness beaten out of them. What about women's strength? Somebody asks. We need all of that too. Edith's eyes crinkled with warmth. The vivid courage of the young, the wide view of the old, all working together with love. All of our talents are vital for the making of a settlement and a moot. Link arms with me. And then they go on to planning how they're going to run their village.
Yeah, so thinking our arms together and supporting each other definitely is the way forward.
That's what I hope will happen as a result of the book. People read the book and somehow either make more links within their communities or links with other people who've read the book, and try and work out how to build community locally everywhere and get those veg growing and stop those fumes fuming, and how we can actually turn this whole system around into a more loving and nurturing way of life for everybody.
Mm. Yeah, and it is possible if we all, come out of our wrongness and know that we have something to contribute, and remember that, that we do have something to contribute, and what we have to contribute is completely unique to us. But it's vital, we are all part of that link in the circle, and that we're all meant to be there, and we're all valuable, and we can all make a difference, and together we will rise, as they say, as the saying goes. Fabulous. So start by reading Rachel's book. And where can we find your book? Where can we buy you, or buy the books, I should say, not you?
Just click on the website and follow the links.
Fabulous. Wonderful. And the website link is below as well under this video, so you can go and find out more about Rachel, about the book, and I believe there's 2 more books yet to come as well.
Yep, I'm hard at work.
We wait with anticipation. Fabulous. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for talking.
Thank you so much. And if anybody has any questions, do feel free to comment beneath this as well, and we shall try and answer any of those for you. So thank you, and lots of love to you all.